I think Ralsei is using the Shelter Dark World, and more specifically, Hometown sewer system, to make his way to each Dark World. I believe in toilet theory! Deltarune. I love Deltarune so much, dude. And Chapter 5 is only a couple days away. God damn. I've been wanting to make a Deltarune video for quite a while now, but I just haven't really been able to come up with any theory of my own. Until now. Mostly. Okay, this theory video wouldn't really exist if not for my friend Sunshine. They're really cool and awesome and epic, and really awesome and epic and cool. I remember, like, over a month ago, I was chatting with them about Deltarune theories, specifically toilet theory, and then they're just like, oh, so that's how Ralsei is able to get around to the other Dark Worlds, just using the sewer systems. And I was like, oh my god, I get it. I also just want to say, overall, this is going to be more of a discussion, speculation thing, rather than a full concrete theory. I'm just going to be, like, talking about a bunch of different points and, like, evidence or whatever, and just, like, certain things I noticed, or just, like, yeah, just overall discussion thing. Nothing concrete just yet, but I feel like there's something. Okay, what is up with Castletown? So, with Castletown being the only Dark World we've seen thus far with a fountain capable of producing pure darkness, which, you know, is able to prevent darkness from other worlds from being turned to stone, as well as it being, you know, where the Prince of Dark comes from, you'd think it'd be the first Dark World, right? The first true, proper Dark World, the one alone that maintains the balance. But if it is in fact the first Dark World, then it also would have had to have shown up pretty recently, right? I mean, it's in a school supply closet, which I can't really imagine going unused, especially if Alphys keeps running out of chalk and there being spare chalk in the supply closet. Which brings me to the shelter. Now, how long has the Shelter's Dark World been around? We know that the Knight uses it as their base of operations, Chris seems to have a history with it, and it could have to do with Dessa's disappearance. We hear the Garter sounds coming from it as far back as Chapter 1, and it also requires a set of codes in order to enter it in the first place, meaning some random Joe Schmo can't just wander into it like the supply closet. If toilet theory is anything to go off of, then there's also the fact the Shelter's Dark World is probably within Hometown Sewers system too, making it by far the largest and probably most powerful Dark World we've come across. From its massive importance, history, and scale, I don't think it's at all a stretch to say that the Shelter's Dark World is the first Dark World. I also don't think it's a stretch to say that, just like Castletown, the Shelter's fountain would also probably have to be made of pure darkness as well, right? Like, there's gotta be something up here, right? Like, with everything going on with the Shelter, its Dark World couldn't possibly have shown up recently, or function, or be as simple to seal like the other Dark Worlds we've seen, right? And if it has been around the longest, then what does that say about Castletown? Could they somehow be one and the same, or perhaps two parts of the same world? Kind of like the Church's Dark World being split between two fountains. It also seems like the area at the beginning of the Supply Closet Dark World is going to come back into relevance soon, especially now that we have the climbing ability. It seems likely we'll be able to climb back up and investigate it further. But if it isn't relevant, then how come it was blocked off when you return to Castletown at the end of Chapter 4? To me, that does make it seem pretty clear it will be relevant, because if it wasn't, I don't really see any reason for them to block it off here. I don't know, unless Tricky Tony's being a little prankster again. Another pretty big question is Ralsei's role in all this. In Chapter 1, Ralsei brings up the balance, and how another fountain appearing threatens that balance. But if the Shelter Dark World has been around the entire time, then how come Ralsei's never mentioned it, or its presence, you know, disturbing that balance? Obviously, if the Shelter and Closet Dark Worlds are one and the same, then he wouldn't see the Shelter's presence as a threat to that balance. Or perhaps this is yet another thing he hasn't told us the whole truth of. Could be the latter, honestly. As the title of this theory explains, though, I also think this could help explain just how exactly Ralsei can travel between Dark Worlds. Like, we know he can't just, like, teleport there. There's an actual distance that needs to be crossed. And I think them using, like, the Shelter Dark World as a means to travel to different places makes sense. And if the Shelter and Castletown are connected, then I could help further explain how Ralsei is even aware of this. Narratively, this connection could also play into what Ralsei says at the beginning of Chapter 3, encouraging Chris and Susie to make real friends in the real world and to just forget about them. If Castletown and the Shelter were connected through a Dark World, then ultimately it would lead to Chris and Susie needing to sacrifice Castletown in order to seal it. And it makes it significantly harder for Susie and Chris to go through if they do eventually find out. Could it be the unseen final prophecy? Possibly, I'm not sure. Like, since this doesn't really line up with the fact Ralsei withheld that info to try and prevent it, whereas here I'm kind of arguing he's very much trying to stick with it instead. I don't know, I'm too much of a little baby to lock in an answer right now. Okay, so we have three possibilities. Possibility 1. Castletown and the Shelter Dark World are one and the same. sharing the same fountain. Now, either Ralsei doesn't see this as an imbalance because they are one and the same, which could have interesting implications for where this narrative will lead. The idea that Susie and Chris can't or aren't supposed to seal the shelter, or he's simply being untruthful about the balance. Possibly he's keeping this a secret, knowing that Chris and Susie will eventually have to seal Castletown in order to seal the shelter. After all, if just one other fountain in Chapter 1 was enough to disturb the balance, God knows what 4 fountains would be doing if Castletown and the shelter are, in fact, separate. Possibility number 2. Same as before, only that Castletown is actually a second, smaller fountain formed from the shelter's dark world, just like the church in Chapter 4. This also explains why Castletown just seems to have appeared recently, Ralsei traveling to different dark worlds using the shelter, and why they're both presumably dark worlds filled with pure darkness. You could also stick with the idea that Castletown's fountain is the true original fountain, and that potentially the shelter's dark world was actually like a second fountain formed from its fountain, or something like that. It's also entirely possible Ralsei just simply isn't telling them about the shelter simply because they're just not ready, or perhaps like the prophecy isn't specifying that they should go in that soon, Like the prophecy is stuff like the Queen's Chariot and like it's talking about Tenna and like the Flower King and stuff, and those are events they still need to go through before they get to that point, which is why Ralsei isn't telling them about it sooner. Possibility number 3. They are separate. I'm dumb, which is probably true, and there are a multitude of other reasons that explain all this stuff that don't have to do with the Castletown and the shelter being connected. But also, Ralsei is still absolutely using the sewers to travel between dark worlds. If you want my personal opinion, for me, it's possibility too. I feel like with what we know in the way of explained things, that to me feels like the most logical option to go with. Like Castletown seeming to appear recently, the fact in Chapter 4 that we've seen a dark world with 2 fountains before, being like 2 pieces of the same world. I also really like how this works narratively. So yeah, that's kind of all I've got so far. I've really wanted to make a Deltarune video for a while now, and my conversations with my friend Sunshine have really gotten me like into the mood again of doing this. I am so excited for Chapter 5. There's like a 95% chance though that when it comes out, it'll completely rip our theory to shreds, which, I'm fine with that. Alternatively, the chapter could come out and then it gives me even more knowledge, which I can reapply to this video or whatever. Who knows? Maybe me and Sunshine will do like a video together after Chapter 5, like going back over it, going over more stuff, and like creating in like an actual concrete theory this time. Whatever the case is, thank you for watching this. I liked making this video. I like Deltarune. I hope you guys like Deltarune too, and I hope you guys like this video because I'd really love to make another one. Anyways, yeah, take care.